In today's video, I'm going to show you how to paint that cute mouse. I will use the brushes and texture from my watercolor bundle, and I will list everything I'm using in the description below. I will also link the sketch that you can download for free, and as you can see, I already have my sketch here, and I'm going to start painting on a blank layer below the layers with the texture. I'm using the texture called Canvas Basic. I will choose watercolor background as a brush, and I'll paint brown part of the cup. Now I'll change the brush to the watercolor detail blurred, and I will smooth the transition between shades. Now I'll choose ink as eraser brush, and I will clean the edges to match my sketch. Now that I look at it, it seems too symmetrical, so I go to adjustments and liquify, and I'll change the shape a bit. Somehow it seems better to me now, so we can move on to the next step. So now duplicate that layer, select the layer below, and use hue, saturation, brightness, set the brightness to the max. Then duplicate that layer several times and merge them all together. Now I'll put alpha lock on that layer. This layer is no longer transparent, and I will easily add some darker patches on that layer using watercolor heavily diluted. Now I'll make a new layer below. I'll choose grey color and ink as a brush, and I'll paint the rest of the mushroom. I will brighten it up a bit. I'll put alpha lock on that layer. I'll change the brush to the watercolor for everything, and I will add some darker patches. When you feel that the spots are too regular, just change the brush to the watercolor detail blurred and blur them a little bit to achieve a nice watercolor effect. Now I'll change the brush to the watercolor sip, and I'll add some darker and lighter spots and shadows. Now I add some beige accents, but I'll do it on a new layer as a clipping mask. I'm doing it on a separate layer to have more control later. For example, I will be able to darken or lighten it freely. Now a little shape correction, and I'm still working on the texture. I'll blur these stains with watercolor blurred brush. Now I'll make a new layer above the cup of the mushroom. I choose white and ink as a brush. And I'll add some bigger and smaller spots on the mushroom. I put alpha lock on that layer. I'll choose grey and watercolor sip as a brush, and I add shadows to make them look like little holes. I think I can add even more darker places on the cup. I will use watercolor sip as a brush. Now I switch the brush to the watercolor background, and I'll add some more darker patches. It will give nice watercolor effect. And some more details with Watercolor for Everything brush. This brush is good for heavy shadows and edges. Now I'm going to tidy up the layers a bit. I will select all layers with mushroom elements and put them in a group. I can move on and start painting the mouse. I will do it on a separate layer above. I select light gray color and watercolor wet brush. So now duplicate that layer, select the layer below and use hue, saturation, brightness, set the brightness to the max. Then duplicate that layer several times and merge them all together. Now I will clean that layer using eraser brush set to the ink. I'll put alpha lock on that layer. I switch the brush to the watercolor heavily diluted. With this brush I can apply and blend shades at the same time. And I will smooth it even more with watercolor detailed blurred brush. Now I choose a very light orange and watercolor sepia brush and I'll paint the inside of the mouse's ear. I'll smooth it out a bit with watercolor detailed blurred. Now I'll choose darker grey tone and watercolor for everything as a brush and I'll add some more darker details. Now I'll change the brush to the watercolor C because it blends easily with the existing color. Now I'll choose watercolor blurred and I'll blur out the places where I think there are too sharp edges. Now I'll switch the brush to the watercolor for everything and I'll choose white and I'll add some flashes of lights. Then I'll select watercolor detailed blurred and I will smooth it out a bit. And now again I feel I need to add some more darker details using watercolor for everything as a brush. Now I'll switch the brush to the watercolor heavily diluted. This brush gives nice spots and if I need to I can blur them later. Using watercolor C brush, I'll add the cheeks in the same light orange color that I used before. I forgot to paint this little hand, so I'm going to turn off alpha lock and do that. Now I'm going to paint nose, eyes, mouth and whiskers. I will do it on a separate layer and I'm going to use HB pencil. Now I'll switch the brush to the watercolor for everything and I'll paint some shadows around the eyes and nose. Now I'll make a new layer above the mouse. I'll choose grey and ink as a brush. And I'll paint a shirt. I don't know what color it will be yet, but it will be a good base. For now I have chosen a color so that I can see where I'm painting on a white background. Anyway, I'm going to lighten this layer to make it white. Now I turn on alpha lock to make it easy to color and let's choose a color. I think the bright green shirt suits to the mouse, so I choose watercolor background brush and paint it. I change the brush to the watercolor blurred and smooth it out a bit. And now I'll change the brush to the watercolor heavily diluted to add some darker spots. And for more rather sharp details, I'll choose watercolor for everything. Sometimes it's really hard to decide when to stop. I'm likely to correct and correct. Let me know in the comments if you are doing the same. Okay, so let's move on. I do a new layer. I choose gray and ink as a brush, and I'm going to paint the stone. But the better place for the layer with the stone is below the mouse. Now I go to selection tool, set to freehand, and I'm going to choose a surface of the stone, then go to hue, saturation and brightness, and I will make it a little bit darker. But the surface on top will be brighter. I'm going to turn on alpha lock and add some darker details. I'm going to use watercolor for everything as a brush. I can move on and start painting the book. I will do it on a separate layer. I'll make a solid base first. I will color the book and brighten it to white. I will put alpha lock on that layer. I'll choose watercolor background brush and I'll add color on that white base. I'll choose brown. I will add some darker details and missing elements to the book, but first I need to turn off alpha lock. Now I'll choose 8B pencil as a brush and bright yellow color, and I'll add some decorations to the book. Now I'm going to do some tidying up in layers. I will make a group called mouse. And now it looks clean and I can move on to the background. I'll make a separate layer and paint different grasses and flowers. This is a good time to play around with the brushes and see how they work. Here I mainly use watercolor for everything and watercolor sip brush. Now I'll make a new layer below all of them and I'll add some ground. I'll use watercolor background as a brush. I'll change the brush to the watercolor blurred and I will blur the ground a little bit on some of the edges. I think I can add some darker accent here. I'll do this on a separate layer so I can easily edit it later if I need it. And one last but very important thing that I forgot, a tail. So I select the layer with mouse, white color and ink as a brush, and I'll paint the shape of a tail. Now I'll put alpha lock on that layer and I easily paint grey shadows on the tail. And there we go. I hope you enjoyed painting this cute mouse. If you think I've earned it, please give this video a like and subscribe the channel if you haven't already. Thanks for your support, thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.